Hello everyone, Mike Sodi here, and welcome to Lesson 1 in the Mage Guide series. This is a friendly reminder to please take a moment to pause the video and read the description to see what topics are being covered. This will let you decide if you need to watch this video or move on to another video in the series. For our first topic, we are going to cover the methods of magical combat. Now keep in mind that each method I mention is general terminology and is used to link all subcategories or specific builds, which will be explained later. The first method is called Pure Mage or Full Caster. In this method, the user wields a spell in both hands and actively uses them both to cast two different spells or dual cast a single empower spell. Example subcategories of a full caster is Destruction Mage, Blood Mage, Summoners, Necromancers, etc. These types of builds will rarely wield weapons and will mainly use staves or scrolls in emergencies. The next method of combat is a Lorerim specialty, the Spell Staff or Spell Wand. Enchanting perks give benefits for casting with a stave in one hand, and these casters take advantage of those benefits. They can cast main spells with one hand while using a stave or wand to cast backup spells as needed. Some builds can even use the stave exclusively and recharge it on the fly by reusing soul gems. Though this method existed in original Skyrim, Lorerim mods make it all the more viable. Next, we move on to the most well-known fighting style, the Spellblade. The Spellblade uses a weapon in one hand and spell in the other. They rely on a mix of melee combat with magic for damage or utility. Much like a full caster, Spellblades come with many subcategories, such as Arcane Tricksters, Dead Knights, Gish, and Nightblades. Their choice in school of magic usually varies depending on the style of combat they wish to adopt. Now onto a more rare and less known fighting style, the Spell Shield. The Spell Shield was a less used Skyrim build that was utilized by mages who wanted a trusty defensive tool to complement a squishy playstyle. These mages would cast spells with their main hand while using shields to block attacks. Some bolder mages would even use the shield offensively to ram targets. The best thing about this build, however, is that it functions on two separate resources. Blocking requires stamina, while offensive spellcasting requires magicka. This solves stamina management issues that most warriors would face. The final combat style is Quick Cast. This combat style is often used by weapon purists who want backup magic to aid their main combat. This can be a warrior who casts elemental enchant on their weapons, a two-handed fighter who quickly switches to a healing spell when low health, or an archer who summons a creature to keep the enemies occupied while they shoot arrows. Overall, though magic is present, it's rarely the main form of fighting and more of a backup or utility tool for the main weapon. Each of these magical combat styles can work in Lorerim. When it comes to new players, I would strongly recommend the Spellblade combat style, as it is both functional and allows you to enjoy more aspects of Lorerim unique items and spells compared to a purist. Our next topic of discussion is something we briefly mentioned in the introduction video, and that is spell scaling. As you are aware, placing perk points into a tier of magic will increase that school's magic power. However, how does this work exactly? To answer that, we will take a look at the destruction skill tree as an example. By default, the destruction tree has a scaling of 0. This means that any spell you get is as is. For example, if you gain a Novice Flame spell that does 10 damage per second, that is exactly what it will do. If you get an Apprentice Firebolt spell that does 20 damage, that is also exactly what it will do. However, let's pretend that I place a perk point into Novice Tier Destruction. By placing the perk point there, I will now scale the damage of all spells of Novice and higher by 1% times the spell school level. For example, if my Destruction Tree was level 50, this Novice perk would make all Novice and higher spells do 50% more damage. This means that Novice Flame spell will now do 15 damage per second, and the Apprentice Firebolt spell will do 30 damage. Next, if I were to place a perk point into Apprentice Destruction, all spells of Apprentice and higher will gain an additional 1% increase times spell school level. This means at 50 Destruction, that Apprentice spell and higher are now 100% more powerful. So my Apprentice Firebolt spell will now do 40 damage. However, it is important to note that my Novice Flame spell will still only do 15 damage per second. This is because the Apprentice perk will only improve spells of its tier and higher. Now, this pattern will repeat itself all the way to Master. One thing to remember is that these calculations were assuming that the spell school is only at level 50. If you are at level 100 Destruction, for example, that Novice Flame spell will now be at 1% times 100, which is a 100% increase. At that point, the Flame spell will do 20 damage per second. Similarly, with the Apprentice perk, the Apprentice Firebolt will be 2% times 100, which is 200% increase. At that point, the Firebolt spell will be doing 60 damage. Now that you understand spell scaling, you can see how quickly the damage output increases for higher level spells. This is why even a single point of perk investment can go a long way when it comes to spell scaling. Moving on to the topic of Birthsigns, you have 4 main choices: the Mage, the Apprentice, the Atronach, and the Ritual. The Mage sign increases your magicka by 150 and increases spell damage by 10%. This spell damage will increase to 20% upon hitting Master in any spell school. This makes the Mage sign the hardest hitter of the game if you went offensive spells. The trade-off is no additional magicka regeneration like the Apprentice and no spell absorb from the Atronach. Still, the Mage sign stands as a perfectly viable choice for anyone who can overcome its flaws. I'd advise anyone picking this Birth sign to learn spells that absorb magicka and to invest into early enchanting for cost reduction gear. The Apprentice increases magicka by 100, adds 3 flat magicka regen, and you take 25% more magic damage as a flaw. Upon hitting Master in any spell school, this 25% increased magic damage penalty will be removed completely. With a decent magicka pool and regeneration, this Birth sign offers a fluid combat at the cost of being weak to mages in the early and mid game. Due to the rarity of enemy mages in the early game, this sign is actually pretty safe for new players. I would highly suggest a Bread and Race or some investment into alteration early on to counter the magic resistance before your character transitions into the mid-game areas. The Atronach increases magicka by 150, and this doubles to 300 upon reaching Master in any school. This Birth sign also comes with a very nice 30% spell absorb that combos perfectly with the Breden's 10% racial passive. Not having your magicka drain when struck by lightning spells is also a nice bonus. However, the downside is that this sign offers no natural magicka regeneration, and the player must rely on various spells and potions to regenerate magicka. When using potions, please remember to use ones that give flat number regeneration and not percentage base. The percentage ones only increase natural regeneration, which the Atronach removes. This Birth sign is strong in capable hands, but requires knowledge and spells that absorb and regenerate magicka. Because of this, if you are completely new to Lorerim and not following another player's build guide which explains how to use this birth sign, I highly advise against picking it. The Ritual Stone is actually a very unique birth sign that allows you to cast 3 different powers with a 24-hour cooldown. The first ability heals you and all nearby allies for 1000 health. The second ability reanimates all nearby corpses of level 50 and under with no regard to your summon limit. These reanimations do not leave a dust behind, which allows you to reanimate again if you wait 24 hours near the same corpse. The final ability uses Turn Undead, which scares off all nearby undead that are level 50 and lower. The important thing to know is that these powers have no cost and can be cast using a hotkey rather than unequipping your current weapons. This makes it a good sign for players who want a few clutch spells without delving into the whole magic aspect of things. And this covers the general overview of the Mage birth signs and concludes lesson 1 of the Mage Guide series. If you wish to learn more, please look for the next episode. If this video has helped you, please consider a like and subscribe to help this channel grow. This is Mike Zodia. Have a good one.